Hey friends, welcome to the Links to Messiah podcast. My name's Rachel Kushner, and this is where we explore the Jewish roots of our faith and create family traditions that point straight to Jesus. Let's get started. Welcome back to our Shabbat table where we slow down and remember. I am so glad that you are here today, whether you are curled up on the couch, listening in the car, maybe listening at the kitchen table. This time is for you and for your family. Today, we are talking about Moses and something really important about God. God is a promise keeper. That's what we're talking about. Now, before we jump into today's story, I want to tell you something about this week's Shabbat Club packet because it was created to make this conversation very simple, meaningful, and fun for your entire family. Inside this week's packet, you will find a kid-friendly devotional about Moses that will help your children understand what it means that God is a promise keeper. There's a maze activity where kids help Moses get to the parting of the Red Sea. We have a coloring page featuring our theme verse from Exodus, where God says, I am the Lord. I will bring you out. I will take you as my own people, and I will be your God. Kids are going to love coloring those beautiful words straight out of Scripture. Also included this week, we have a cut and paste timeline that is going to help your kids see how God stayed faithful at every step of Moses' story. And as a bonus, we included a short YouTube video that helps bring the story to life. Think of it as like frosting on the cake. It's not required, but it's a really fun little extra. So if you're already a part of Shabbat Club, check your inbox on Friday at 10 a.m. Your packet will be ready and waiting for you. If you are not in the club, you are always welcome to listen along. Having the packet is going to make the experience even richer. It will give your kids something to engage with as they listen. But if you don't have it, it's all good. So let's gather and dive into today's story about Moses and the faithful God who always keeps his promises. Oh, before we begin, let's just take a deep breath. In and out. So let's get into today's content. Here's where we're going. We're going to talk about how the story begins with a promise, God choosing Moses, God's faithfulness on the journey, and of course, the incredible connection to Jesus. And at the end, stick around, we have one takeaway for both parents and kids. So the promise begins. Let's start there. Long before Moses was born, God made a promise to a man named Abraham. God promised that Abraham's family would grow into a nation and that God would bless the whole world through them. But many years passed, and Abraham's family ended up as slaves in Egypt, and life was hard. They cried out to God, and it may have felt like God had forgotten his promise. But God never forgets. God was already working on a plan, even when his people could not see it. God chooses a man named Moses to help keep his promise. Moses did not feel brave. He didn't feel strong. He didn't feel ready. In fact, Moses felt scared. He worried that he wasn't a good enough speaker and that Pharaoh, the powerful ruler of Egypt, would not listen to him. But God reminded Moses of something very important. God promised to be with him. When Moses stood before Pharaoh and asked him to let God's people go free, Pharaoh said no. Again and again, Pharaoh refused to listen. But God showed his power in mighty ways, and he proved that no ruler is stronger than him. Step by step, God kept his promise and led his people out of slavery toward freedom. Even after the Israelites left Egypt, the journey was not easy. There were moments when the people felt afraid and tired and unsure, but God stayed with them. He opened the Red Sea. Scripture says that the Israelites walked on dry ground. Think about that. Think about going to a body of water and God parting the seas, parting the lake, parting the river, parting the pond, parting the stream. Think of that. Think of a body of water and all the muck and mire that would be present. It would be muddy and gross, wouldn't it? No. God allowed them to walk on dry ground. He guided them through the wilderness. He never stopped caring for his people. Through Moses' story, we learn that God keeps his promises in his time and his way. Sometimes that means waiting. Sometimes that means trusting God when things feel uncertain. But God is always faithful. And Moses' story points us to an even bigger promise. Just as God used Moses to rescue his people from slavery, God sent Jesus to rescue us from our sin. Jesus came to bring freedom, forgiveness, and new life. God's promise to Abraham was not just about one family. It was about blessing the whole world. And Jesus is the fulfillment of that promise. The same faithful God who worked through Moses is the God who sent Jesus. And he is the same God who is with us today. Here's one big takeaway for everybody listening today. You can trust God even when you have to wait. Kids, when something feels hard or confusing, you can remember that God keeps his promises. And parents, when life feels overwhelming or uncertain, you can remember the same truth. God is still working, just like he was in Moses' story. I am having a moment. I had a moment like this when I recorded the previous week's podcast. Somehow, as I am sharing this information with you, God is touching my heart at the exact same time. Because sometimes I do get overwhelmed. And sometimes when things feel uncertain, I don't trust and I don't remember God's promises. But when life feels overwhelming or uncertain, I can remember the same truth. God is working, just like he was in Moses' story. So as you head into your week, ask each other this simple question. What promise from God do we need to remember today? May this story remind you that God is faithful, that God is trustworthy, and that God always keeps his promises. I cannot wait to see you next time. Thanks for pulling up a chair to our Shabbat table. Thanks for joining me today. Don't forget to head over to linkstomessiah.com, where we have a lot of free resources, seasonal boxes, and an ever-growing digital library. We are here to help your family connect with the Jewish roots of our faith and the Messiah, Jesus.